I'm here with my good friend Dan Hunt, Luthier extraordinaire. Thank you for letting me in your home talk a little bit. Very interested in the work you're doing and the guitars you've made, so tell me how it all started.
I grew up in Central Mass. I lived in Rutland for a while. I graduated from Shrewsbury High. Got my first guitar, which everyone is usually a classical with the 5 inches high that you can't play. But at some point, actually, my middle brother did buy me a guitar, midway through junior high. And so basically, I've always played guitar forever. I actually got my first carpentry job when I was 14, which essentially consists of carrying wood on your shoulder. But you do chop some stuff up. But like everything, just cutting wood. I've always cut wood, and I've always played guitar. And I often thought about trying to, first maybe do repairs, kind of fix your own guitar. You kind of figure some things out. And then at some point, I was going to this guy, Glenn Nelson at Mockingbird Music, and I'd bug him hey, let me come work here. I want to build a guitar. And I'm not even lying. Probably after 5 years, he finally said, well, if you want to come out here for apprenticeship, come on out. And so I went out there, and he said, well, let's build a guitar. I have you build a guitar. And at the time, I'd been, trying to play Django music and listening to it more just on an acoustic guitar. At the time, I guess maybe I had my L50, so I had an arch top, but I realized, it was a different sound, a whole different, culture and so forth. So fortunately, I was able to, find a scale Selmer guitar plan, and also the history of Selmer guitar book, I think just kind of happened to come out around that same time. So I was able to build my first guitar following an exact replica of a Selmer, along with the book, which had all, the history of Selmer, pictures, and even molds and builders and all kinds of stuff.
What brought you to the other builders?
At first, some of it was probably design, just realizing, there's other types of guitars. Because once again, living in America, a Selmer guitar, I never saw a Selmer guitar in my life until I went to, a guitar show, and there it was. So in real life, or even, European jazz guitar. So once you discovered there was a whole other world, to me, a Selmer guitar reminded me of, classical guitar. It's light, and it's, it has that sound, and the strings are different. And I was selling some guitars through Caravan Guitars with Josh, who was, very nice to work with. And he would send me some Favinos or mystery guitars, all European guitars, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, look at this, totally different approach than American guitars, like the Martin or the Gibson. I used to think, the heavier guitar, the better, because, when you picked up a 1965 Gibson Heritage, it weighs 50 pounds, or it's heavy, I should say. So anyway, once you were introduced to the European guitars, and then even in the back of that Selmer book, you look, there's the Jerome brothers, or there's Favino, or there's DeMoro, and you start to understand, there's, they're all building Selmer style, but it's their own take on it, their own design. There was one he sent, it was just called, the mystery jazz guitar, because there was no name. But what was interesting too, you start to see, wow, look at these backs, high arch backs, and then you also realize, the back and sides, because they're laminate, are extremely lightweight, some more than others. And my friend Kevin Shalanik purchased a mystery guitar on Reverb, and it turned out to be Vasato, which was awesome because, the guitar, as I explain it, if you nailed it to the side of a barn in Vermont for 50 years and threw rocks at it every day, that's what it looked like.
Goodness.
But once I fixed it, even before, what a beautiful guitar. Sounds awesome, it plays great, but it's that charm of, that European charm.
So how did a luthier in Massachusetts become the trusted person to work on these instruments coming out of Chicago, right? That's where Caravan was?
Yes, well, I had built actually a couple guitars for Richard Shepard, who's with Marinouche, and he sort of, I think when they were out in Chicago, actually him and Jack, and I actually built a guitar for Shep, a Fifino style, and then I built Jack like a Jerome Brothers copy, and when they were out there, they talked to Josh and said, "Oh, send a guitar out," and so I sent some guitars out, and that was, once again a great learning experience, because now, well, you're out there and people are trying, or even people have suggestions, or you understand what people are looking for in a Selmer style guitar, and you realize, like I say, the first criteria is, oh, how much does it weigh? Like everything, it's, people have their observations or judgments within the first 10 seconds, right? And then the next thing is, well, how loud is it? Because, everyone wants the canon, right? And then, of course, probably the third criteria is, well, how's the tonality, sonority, the sweetness, and then playability, and then all that stuff comes into play, obviously. So really, you understand that you want a really light guitar that's extremely loud, that just sounds great. European or Django style guitars, it has to be delicate. It has to play well, but also has to bite. And that's really the true thing, because when the function of the form, by being lightweight and projection, it can cut through the crowd, and the sound, like when you listen to the Huck Club of France in the 30s, it really is like a biting sound, but sweet. It's so it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Through kind of process of studying, and also to, like I've talked about, studying violin construction, because when you read books, the history like Paganini or Stradivari, and they talk about how can this little 14-inch long device just cut through to the back of the concert hall. And, well, because it's lightweight, it's piercing, very much like you want your even classical guitar or any guitar. All right, well, this is my good friend Bruno. This guitar here, I made copies of a Stradivari cello from 1720. Now the top is German spruce, the neck is ebony. If we flip it over, we can see the back and sides are walnut, burl, and laminate. The binding is a design I made of ebony and essentially spruce. The tailpiece is a DRH pickup system. There's actually a pickup in here, and you plug in through the back. It's actually my latest guitar, which I just finished, and it's sort of a new design for me. I had a Vesato that I rebuilt for my other friend Kevin, because we're all friends. And I sort of, on this bracing, I made it a little more Vesato-like, so it was sort of a little bit of an innovation, as they say. But I don't know, I was happy with the results, because obviously it's very sweet, and it's also very loud, which is what you like in a guitar. But it's the projection, and just like say the Selmer guitars or European guitars, or that's why the last one once again I copied Stradivari cello holes from 1720, and I don't know, I'd like to think the proof's in the pudding. like it does sound nice. And you know, granted, I'm not the first guy to put F-holes in a guitar, obviously, but but in some ways, you know, like, you know, you have the Selmer, you know, oval hole, you have like the little D hole, the big D hole, you have like the 3 holes, and they all accomplish something different, but still the same. I mean, I think the oval hole, like, well, if you're playing it, you don't hear it as well as out there.
Right.
You know, I think, you know, Bruno had commented with the F holes, he was thinking, oh, I won't be able to hear it that well, but he says, oh, I hear it really well.
What is it about Django, his music, just kind of, what is the thing that really grabs you, that made you, you know, gravitate towards his music, the instrument of choice, as opposed to building standard flat tops, you know, a dreadnought or something like that? Like, what's the pull of Django in your creative life?
Well, I think some of it is, you know, I studied classical guitar with Peter Clemente Jr. for a couple of years, you know, a long time ago. But kind of that, you know, oh, you get exposed to like some European music or even, you know, classical music or even Spanish music, or, you know, so then the next thing is like, well, geez, you can't sound like that unless you have that kind of guitar. So then it was sort of a quest, because once again, I've never saw, you know, a European jazz guitar in my life, certainly not in central Massachusetts. And so, you know, so that was sort of my, you know, thought, oh, so I'm going to build one so I can play this stuff. And also, too, like being like all us rock guys, like, well, we want a solo. Like the best thing in the world is just soloing. So you look at Django, well, geez, that guy is like the greatest solo of all time, or certainly, you know, innovator, or one of them, whatever you want to say. But, and like I said, too, before, it's, you know, we always focus on Django as the player, but also Django the composer. Like, look at all that, you know. I mean, just like all those guys, like Charlie Parker. Like, yeah, what a player, but what a composer. And that's the other part. I don't know. I really appreciate about it in listening to it.
All right, here we are in your shop, and we have this beautiful piece of maple. What can you tell me about this?
All right, well, the story behind this is I was studying about the 5960 Les Paul solid body, which is made of Laney maple. So I went down to see my friends in Putnam, Connecticut, at Barrett Lumber, and they had like 6 of these standing up. So I kind of like freaked out, like, holy cow. And then I went back a couple months later, bought another one, and then maybe a year later the guy called me and said, hey, there's one more left. So I bought that one. So I'm glad I listened to him, because I used the other 2, mainly for necks. All right, so here we have some Walnut Burl Laminate.
This stuff is gorgeous.
Yes, there's a place online, Certainly Wood, and it's really nice because they have all kinds of pictures, and you know, well, as you'll see, Bruno's guitar is a Walnut Burl I just knew, and then the one over there is maple. So the next one, you know, kind of going back to the Walnut Burl, and once again, sort of the fun part is, you know, because it's book match, depending on how you hold it, you know, gives you a different design. And then this is the
the Robert Johnson
yep, Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo.
All right, once again, this is my good friend Jameson. For him, I built a DeMoro kind of triangle hole. And once again, German spruce top, has a DRH pickup system, slightly different design. On this one I was still using like a cylinder, but then I've since sort of modified it. It still works the same, it's just more aesthetics. It has the ebony fretboard, kind of copy of a Selmer style kind of twist where it goes into the hole. More like a traditional Selmer binding. The back and sides are rosewood laminate. So once again, it's like 2 pieces of rosewood, a piece of poplar, then inside is a piece of mahogany. Once again, I also, just like Selmer, I French polished the inside will make it less porous, which gives it more sound because it's not getting lost in the holes, so to speak.
First off, Dan, let's talk about this room. Where are we right now?
Well, this is the music room is what we call it. It really started because there's 2 different wallpapers. Like half the room was sort of orange yellow flowers, and the other half was green. So I started with Charlie Parker pictures, the first thing all by itself. And then I just sort of emanated, if that's the word, from there. And then at some point, I don't know, I guess it worked this way around.
And up to the ceiling and into the closet.
Yes. With Jack, well, we built a Jerome Brothers sort of copy, Jerome Brothers sound hole, kind of a different D hole or smaller D hole. Once again, the top is German spruce, which once again was brought back my friend Birgit from Germany. We have the ebony fretboard, kind of like a curly maple sort of Ipe binding. The back and sides are the rosewood laminate, kind of like the other guitars. It's 2 pieces of rosewood, a piece of poplar, then mahogany inside. On this neck, actually, I got the maple from someplace else, but I made a 3-piece neck, which I like with the same Ipe strip. It's a really 5-piece neck. It also has the DRH pickup system, which I made out of rosewood. And as you can tell, they're all sort of different designs because it's handmade. So over time, we'll kind of change things. And probably the funnest part, or the most funner, is the Pickguard, which is the Jerome Brothers did, but I kind of think of it as the Fred Flintstone Pickguard because it reminds me of Fred Flintstone. And well, then when we go upstairs, I did a few different versions of it with different material, but this actually is mesquite wood from Texas. So. but I really like Bruno's guitars, and I like those other guys' guitars too. They sound great, but I just like that sound in a way. I don't know. I think it's the F holes because I mean it worked for Strad and Guarneri and all those guys. In some ways, you know, I'd almost like to just keep building those because like you say, Bruno's sounds really nice, and even today it has a sweetness to it, like, you know, but it's still also obviously is a Selmer style. It's not like, well, that sounds nothing like a Selmer guitar. It's like, no, it's all right there. It's just a little sweeter, and then too, you know, I listened to all those guitars, and really, well, the wood all came from the same place. Like the tops and bracing all came from Tonholz in Germany. I give a Selmer guitar to somebody, and they don't really know what to do with it because it's not a blues guitar. It's not an arch top. It's not a folk guitar. So it just doesn't get it. Where you give it to a Selmer player, well, it sounds great. That's what it's supposed to do. You know, it's like they understand that. Well, to me, it's really, well, it's kind of like a violin approach, because when I hear violin, there's all the nuances and the eking, all the stuff, and it's very, you know, personable and organic, or however you want to put it, soulful. You know, not that you can't get that with electric guitar too, but it's just, you know, this is a different thing, obviously.
With the country opening up, and maybe even someone like myself going out there and doing this, like Django's music in America, like, do you see it welling up into a spring, or do you think it'll always just kind of be a off the beaten path type of thing?
What is it, every Tuesday night at the Burn, you know, they're playing Django music, and, you know, there's a big scene, plus Berkeley obviously helps, you know. My friend Aaron out in Western Mass, who, you know, I work on his guitar, so no, there's absolutely a scene, and then with the internet, you know, everyone can be connected, and, you know, all the different festivals, and even, was it, you know, the kid that plays on Jack City Dallas with the accordion, you know, it's just, you know, the jazz accordion, and so no, there's a big scene, you know, or big enough.
Such a great shop down there. So many like little pieces of great Django history and good information. Thank you for allowing me to
Well,
come
anytime, Caleb, and thank you so much, and best of luck on this adventure. No, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right.
Anytime.